Ambition in the house. Yes. We're bringing some sass.
Happy
Welcome, everybody.
Sunday.
Exactly. Some of us are a bit excited. Yeah. What a week, guys. Welcome back to Ambition. This is Tiffany.
And Alex. Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
hello.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a week, hasn't it?
it's been a week. I hope everyone's keeping well, but it's certainly been an interesting week, hasn't it?
Interesting, yeah. So I'm sure, unless you sort of live under a rock, you've seen what's been happening in the UK this week. Yeah, everything went a bit crazy, didn't it?
Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's been wild.
started with a really tragic event and then spilled into I don't know, misinformation online and then racist protests around the country and riots and violence and counter protests. Yeah. So I think everyone who lives in the UK is feeling a bit shell shocked. And
Yeah,
so we thought we'd just share a few reflections from our week, didn't we?
absolutely.
How we feel about stuff. And yeah, reflect on some of the other things that have happened to us this week as well.
I know, because aside from the riots, a lot also happens. Motherhood in itself, it's another kind of chapter.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's been interesting. I was saying to Alex before we started recording, I am not on top of the political agenda, so I can't give the facts on this. I can only kind of talk about my experience from someone who maybe has felt like they could have been a potential like victim of it. Seeing how just in the past couple of weeks I've just felt really unsafe since everything's come out, especially living in the northeast of England. I've just felt a bit like, wow, this is a bit close to us. And obviously I've just stayed close to home than I normally do. I've just felt a bit unsure about going too far out.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's been quite new to me because I don't know if you guys know this, but I go everywhere. I go everywhere.
Yeah.
I think people say, "Oh, I see you all the time. I see you down the road." We're always out, but this week we've certainly stayed at home and stayed in the garden. So it's been a bit sad to feel like I can't go out. Yeah.
I mean, I know from just the messages you sent me that like that is not how you normally are at all. And for you to feel
No.
like afraid to go out and like worried about being out with the kids is just horrible. Really horrible.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I've had a chance. I've thought about it. I think one thing about me is, I mean, when we came from England to Nigeria, Nigeria to, not the other way around, from Nigeria to England, we experienced a bit of racism. We lived in Dagenham, and I remember this really racist family. They were like, calling us all sorts of names. But I think I've been quite lucky, and I know maybe that sounds crazy to say, but I've always been quite lucky that I've always felt invincible. For a long time, I felt very invincible. Even moving to the northeast, I've been in rooms where I've been the only black person, but I've been the only person that I feel like I'm the only one that's noticed that. I know nobody's ever made me feel weird or different. So I've been quite lucky in that sense that, I've never had anything. Quite the opposite. I feel people have gone out of the way to be nice. So I think that was just the first time that shadow of doubt was there for me. And I was out with the kids, and I remember like looking at a couple of people's faces, thinking, "Oh," and smiling at them, like, "Oh." And then when they smiled back, I almost felt a sense of relief. So that was a weird kind of, I don't know, like perspective. But hey, I've also felt people have gone out of their way to be really nice recently. So I feel like maybe that was their way of saying, "Look, I know there's a lot going on, but I'm not one of those people." So that was quite nice as well. About
I think there'll be a lot of people who want to kind of prove
they want to send that
they're
message
not
there.
like
But
that.
it's been nice. It's been nice to have her. So I think I wrap this up as like, look, things are going to happen. So it's just kind of like there are still some really good people out there. And I've also like you saw the anti-racist protest as well, didn't you?
Yeah, me and my sister went yesterday to the anti-racist demonstration in Newcastle, and the demonstration of the other side, shall we say, there were like, I thought there were 30 people, and then when I've seen pictures, there were maybe like, I think about 15 versus hundreds and hundreds of people. We were in a packed area of people of all ages, of all races, the LGBT flag flying. I really think that, and there hasn't been, in terms of like in Newcastle, there hasn't been any rioting. I think because the kind of counter protest have got there ahead and have been out there in force. So the same in the West End of Newcastle, which is very sort of ethnically diverse, as people from all over the world live in that area. People went out there on Wednesday to head off any people who might be going to cause trouble or riot. And I think, from my perspective as a white person, I think this has just been a massive wake-up call that actually just like having Black friends or Asian friends isn't enough. That's not enough to not be a racist. I think that you actually have to be doing whatever you can to be anti-racist and educate yourself. Just our group of friends, we do like have people of different nationalities and people of different races in our group of friends, but that's not enough. You can't just be like, oh yes, I've got a friend who's Black, the kind of stuff that people often say that is like, I can't be racist.
My cousin's brother's married to a Black woman. I'm not racist.
Yes. And the kind of stuff that people drop into conversation. But I think as well, I definitely think from a white person's perspective, I think that a lot of people are worried they're going to say the wrong thing. They're going to put their foot in it, that they inadvertently offend somebody. And I think that's when people stay quiet, in my opinion. I think that it's not because they are racist, it's because they're almost afraid of being accidentally seen as one, like putting their foot in it, saying something wrong, or looking like an idiot. So they end up staying quiet when actually the time to be quiet's gone. We need to all stand up and show that the people who are causing trouble and division, and I would say, I know this isn't a politics podcast at all, but the people who've kind of the politicians who've sown division by othering people over the last few years, all of the kind of stop the boats campaigns and stuff as part, that's othering people, and they're not the reason you can't get a GP appointment. Do you know what I mean? For me, the kind of stripping out of public services is the reason you can't get an appointment or life's difficult. So I think the whole country needs a bit of a wake-up call, because I think people thought racism was over, whereas I think if you're white, it's easy to feel that way. I think if you're not white, then you probably do see more racism happen, or you're more attuned to it. So hopefully this is a wake-up call that people need to be better allies, I guess. People need to be more vocally anti-racist than just not racist themselves. One of the things I often hear, so I live in an area of Gateshead that has a very large ultra-Orthodox Jewish population. I hear a lot of people say, oh, you never see any anti-Semitism. And I'm like, maybe that's just because you're not Jewish. Like, just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. It's
so I think we have to be more aware.
Definitely. And my final point on this is that shout out to Rebecca. It's a lovely lady I met at one of my baby groups, and I was talking to her on the train about all this, and then she said the other day she messaged me and she said, oh, by the way, if you're ever thinking of going out to town, let me know and I can come with you and the kids. Like, safety in numbers. I thought, wow, it's lovely. And I'll also give another shout out to you, Alex. I think this week you've shown yourself as like someone who kind of gets it and cares and is doing something. And I just think that's what it's about. So yeah, shout out to the positivity. Right,
thanks,
we'll
Tiffany.
move on. We'll move on.
Well, what else have we learned this week?
Yeah, God, yeah, because Lord,
we got deep. We went there. We tackled racism, Tiffany.
We tackled it, yes. No, this week has been interesting for me. So I've had, I was saying the other day, last week was the most successful recruitment week I've had. But don't it's in against the backdrop of some terrible weeks I've had in recruitment. So I'm a recruitment consultant, by the way. Don't hate me, guys. I know that's a lot. Anyway, so yeah, I've had a really successful week, and I've
Yay.
thank you. And I was thinking a lot about what leads to success. And I was thinking, especially this week, how the crap jobs I've had in my life have served me really well. So one thing about recruitment, as you all know, is like the ability to pick up the phone and talk to anyone is so crucial. Or, pivot, very important to success in recruitment. And for me, that's something I can do now very well. Like right now, if you said, I've got Oprah Winfrey on the phone, I will pick up that phone and speak to her. I mean, I don't know if I'll have a good conversation, but I'll chat to her. Like I'm not bothered. If someone swore to me on the phone right now, I'll pick up the phone and call someone else. That's something I developed from a really rubbish job I had. When I first graduated, I couldn't get a job because of the market at the time. And I got this telephone like interviewer job where we would call people's houses and try to do like market research, and people used to, it was awful. And I just remember that. And I remember the supervisor was like, pick up the phone, pick up the phone. He was quite an aggressive like man. And he would say, pick up the phone. And it was like, but I remember just like doing it and doing it and doing it. And not long after I started, I got promoted and got like a few, pennies more than what I was earning. And I just remember that being in my head, that's a crappy job. But I look back now, I'm so glad I had that job because it's developed something in me today that's now worth so much more in my recruitment journey and skill set. And I just thought, wow, that's the power of the crap things we do in life. Yeah.
It's really funny that you should say that because after I did my A levels, I was working for a temping agency over the summer to like get a bit of money together for university. And I worked handling complaints at I won't name the company, but the company, they're basically like rubbish removal. Like they take away, they empty the bins for like restaurants and stuff like that. And they used to get a lot of complaints, put it that way. So I didn't even have a computer. Like this job, I had a phone and I had a notepad, and people used to ring up and scream at me, basically. People used to ring up and go crazy. They were like, my restaurant's going to get shut down because my bin hasn't been emptied for 3 weeks. I've got rats everywhere. This is honestly what I was dealing with. And I was like an 18-year-old, like, and they caused a foot and mouth outbreak while I was there. It was bad. People were ringing up and screaming. And I used to have to just like handle the complaint, document it all, like sort of try and calm them down a bit before they would then like I would decide whether they got to speak to like the manager who was more responsible for this or not. And oh my god, honestly, that helps you develop a thick skin because you like that these people are really angry, they're really, really furious, and you just have to not take it personally. It's not my fault your bin didn't get emptied. It's not my, but I felt pretty bad for some of them when they're like, my restaurant's going to be shut down. Like, oh dear, I better put these onto the manager. But really, you had to. I think it was. I mean, it was a terrible job. It paid okay, but I literally spent the whole day getting shouted at.
Wow, that sounds worse than mine. But it's amazing, isn't it? The things that define you are often the lowest points, the hardest things, and that's just what allows you to grow as an individual.
Yeah, definitely. The other bit of learning I've got from this week, so I've had my Italian relatives stay with me, and it's been lovely. I'm laughing just because it's been a bit like herding cats. So we have been late for everything. We've been really late for everything. I have been trying to get, like, last year when they were here, we went to this trampoline park that my cousin's little boy nearly wasn't let into because we were so late he didn't get to see the safety briefing, and they're very strict about that. But they have a very laissez-faire attitude to being on time for anything. And, I think in the UK, we do quite like to be on time, but maybe less so than in the Netherlands. Like in the Netherlands, if you're not like 10 minutes early, you're late. Whereas if you're not 10 minutes late for the Italians, you're early. But yeah, so I've been driving them around everywhere. We've had a great time. I am shattered. We have not stopped. We've been to Beamish, which is absolutely tremendous. Beamish is like a living museum of the Northeast, but it's massive. And we've walked around there. But basically, everyone that we've been meant to be meeting up with, I've been having a message to be like, we're going to be late, and it's not my fault. I've done my best, but I can't get them to leave the house on time. And Eddie is a very punctual person, so he hasn't even been coming with us to some of these appointments. But he's been stressed to death, just like, you need to leave the house, you need to leave the house. I'm like, I know we do. But it has allowed me to reflect on the importance of family and spending time together. And I think, because I'm quite a punctual person, I didn't used to be with my ADHD. I didn't used to be. But one of the things I got from being with Eddie, he told me he found lateness really rude because it shows you think your time's worth more than the other person's. And I was like, oh, I'd never thought about it like that before. And it really hit home. And since then, I've managed to be on time. But I realised it's not the end of the world if you are half an hour late for stuff this week.
Yeah, I think especially when you have kids, you've got to stretch your standards have to slip a bit.
Yeah.
You've got to be a bit flexible with time. But I like that. I think what I get from that, Alex, is the idea of, I mean, punctuality is important, but family is even more important. I think sometimes allowing your kind of organized self to lean into the chaos. And because fundamentally it's chaotic, but you're spending time with them, and that's important. So, and it actually leads me to what stood out for me this week. So I had a night where I was home alone with the kids and I was trying to work. And then I had an offer, a job offer come through one of my clients. And when my son was asleep, my daughter was awake. So I panicked, I kind of, oh my God, I've got this offer coming. I need to speak to this candidate. And in the chaos of like, my daughter's awake, I'll have to take her on the call because I can only speak to the candidate, I had about an hour to speak to him because he had another thing to go to. And I just panicked. And I thought, oh my God, my daughter's up. Am I going to have to take her on a call? She's going to be making noise. And and I just realized that I need to get used to the chaos. I think something I need to wire my head around is that I can be incredible, even if I've got my daughter on my back, I'm bouncing her up and down. I have to get her in a call. I need to say, hey, look, we've got some background noise, people. I think it's for me, and I think that's my problem. I don't think it's anyone's problem. I think we live in a world where, it's not like I'm going to take her to every call or anything, but there are moments when I'm going to have my daughter or have my son, and I need to be okay with still being amazing in those moments, even if it's a little bit chaotic with them. But I think because I panicked, because I thought, oh my God, I thought it was a bit much. And because of that, I think I wasn't able to be relaxed. So that was an interesting moment for me. But
I think that's really interesting. Sorry, go on. I've interrupted you there. Go on.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so that was just something that kind of, and as I laid in bed that night, finally when we went to bed, the thought came to me: you can't have the cuddles without the chaos. You can't have the joys without the juggle. And I thought,
I like that.
Thank you. And I just thought, I've got to accept this as my norm.
Well, so I'm listening to an audiobook at the moment. It's called When She's in the Room, and it's by someone called Edwina Dunn, who's she's the data brain behind the idea of Club Card. She basically invented that. She's worked in lots of Tesco Club Card. It's like a loyalty scheme for anyone who's not in the UK. So she's very high-powered businesswoman, and she set up something called the Female Lead, and I follow them on LinkedIn. And so I found out about this book. But anyway, just plug that for a second. She talks about the pandemic and the rise of hybrid working and people being at home, and how one of the really interesting things to see was that when men had to work at home in the pandemic and their kids were there, they didn't apologize. They were just like, my kid's on the call, and just got on with it. And I think sometimes it's inevitable, and we maybe just need to apologize for it less and just be like, yeah, really sorry, my daughter's here. Like,
I need to own that.
I have to deal with it. Just like you say, own it.
I need to own that. So I think I was saying how I need to just it's something I didn't have, up to that point. I thought I did, but I didn't. I would think I like the idea of that they're downstairs, I'm working upstairs, and obviously everything is very compartmentalized, but there will be moments where it just kind of becomes a bit blurry. And I need to go on that call, like I said, and be like, hey, got my daughter here. I still think to myself, Tiffany, you can still smash it even with having your daughter in your lap, bouncing in your lap, because look, this is my reality. I'm a working mom. Like, there's going to be some chaos in the everything. So I can't just think I'm going to perform well when the kids are not there. I think that's why I need to get used to. But I'm definitely going to check out that book because that was quite a key lesson for me this week.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I hadn't thought about it like that women will be more apologetic about that.
Yeah, or you
but
just feel
men will
nervous.
be like, yeah, my kid's here, and just get on with it. So yeah, sounds like we've had a week full of learning.
Yeah, I think you're always learning. It's just so sometimes I wish I could be left alone and not learn anything, but life just keeps giving me these lessons.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I was very happy to see that the Northeast came out, like that Newcastle, yesterday came out and showed that it is the caring place that I thought it was. So I was happy to end the week on that note after how it started. And I think one of the things as well with my family being here, you're like, oh my God, they're seeing this country at its absolute worst. So I'm pleased that they've then seen actually Newcastle's come out to kind of show that it is a tolerant and open place. But yeah, it's been a lot this week, and I'm glad that we've had some positive moments in there too, like that you've smashed your week in recruitment.
Yeah, it's been a good week. Come on, we've got this. All right.
Yes.
It's been amazing, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.